you are just showing up and you sound lame, look lame, and you're just overtly advertising or selling, people are going to tune you out. And you're starting to see big brands that are being affected by COVID-19. You've heard of some bankruptcies recently, like Neiman Marcus and J. Crew, and you're going to continue to see that. So I think it's a very long way for me to say to your audience here that if you have any inkling into an idea or a brand that you want to start, now's the time to do it.
Hey guys, welcome back to Calvation, episode number 14. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe to the YouTube channel or the podcast. Keep up with the latest episodes. So today we have someone really, really special. He has over 10 years experience of social media. He is the CEO or the founder of Jill Media. They have Fortune 500 clients. He's the first generation of Latin marketing. He's an international speaker. He is also the author of End of Marketing, which I have his book right here. I recommend it to anyone. I read over 140 pages so far. I'll leave the link in the description so where you guys can find the book, where you guys can purchase it. So today we have Carlos Gil. It's a pleasure to have you, man.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for your support. I appreciate that warm introduction, and always a pleasure to be able to chat with someone like this. We're connected through social media, but it's always a pleasure when I'm able to hop on a podcast and just chop it up, man.
Yeah, and now, things are, during this pandemic, how has that affected, your business, your family, your clients, you have a lot of clients, you have a lot of employees, there's a lot in your hands, right? And how did you deal with that? There's so much pressure going on, businesses are losing money, people losing, like money in general. So how did you deal with that?
Man, such a good question. So this is the second time I go through something of this magnitude. Granted, we haven't had to encounter a pandemic before where all business completely just stops and people are at home. But 13 years ago, almost in 2008, when we had the last recession due to the banking crisis here in the United States, I lost my job, and I was really young at the time. I was 25. And it was then when I encountered for the first time what it's like to really suffer financially, what it's like to lose, because not only did I lose a job, my kids were young at the time, lost my house, lost my cars, lost all the money I had, and times were really rough. And, Charlie, I vowed to never find myself in that position again. And, as you get older, you become much more wise, and you start saving, and you start making business moves to really put you in a position where if things were to go sideways, at least you have a plan B, C, and D. So, you mentioned before some of the different accolades, right? I have a marketing agency, public speaker, author. What I've been able to do over the last 10 years is create different revenue streams for myself, specifically teaching courses online, which provide me with residual income. Having a book really helps because that provides residual income from sales. And then also growing a brand over the last decade on social media has helped me create a base for myself through consulting. These are all different revenue streams that would have never been made possible had I not first lost my job in 2008 and gone through the last recession. So kind of fast forward to where we're at now in 2020, I'm not going to say that it's business as usual and things are great, because the reality is that they're not. My marketing agency is taking a big blow. I'm doing no in-person public speaking, but I'm still able to weather this storm because of all the moves I made over the last 10 years leading up to today. Now, there's been some other areas like e-commerce that have become, for me, really a point of focus and emphasis. So I'm in the process of launching a few different e-commerce brands, some more to come on that. And again, man, like, it's just staying active. And that's been the advice I've been giving to everyone since we kind of started with this, social distancing and stay at home orders, is you have to stay active. You have to do as much as you possibly can, whether it's creating a podcast, getting more people like you're doing on your podcast, staying active on social media. If you just sit idle and do nothing, I guarantee you're going to put yourself really far behind in these times.
Yeah, what I realized is that I feel like the COVID-19 is such a big lesson for everyone, because it shows that you need digital, you need social media in order to bring awareness and exposure. You mentioned a lot of time how, if you do not build a personal brand, or businesses are not making a relevant, content out there, in the next 5-10 years, you will be irrelevant. Can you explain to us why the old marketing will affect, and probably businesses or even influencers will lose money?
Such a good question. I'm really fortunate that I wrote a book that was intended to really help people future-proof their business over the next 10 years. Granted, there's nowhere in the end of marketing do I write about COVID-19 or a pandemic. I was really referring to humanizing your brand because of AI being artificial intelligence, being the biggest threat to marketing today. But, to your point, people are brands today. You're a brand, I'm a brand, anyone watching or listening to this, they're a brand. We all have influence. People buy from people they trust and that they like. And I think when you look at the rise of influencers on social media, you really start to realize that today those influencers, they're brands that are selling to you no different than traditional corporate brands sell to you. Now, the biggest shift that we've seen over the last several years is that, the big personal brands, whether you want to say a Kylie Jenner or DJ Khaled or Jake and Logan Paul, or even more of like a micro influencer like myself, these individuals, these people, they are taking attention away from corporations. They're taking digital market share away from the Starbucks and the Nikes and the Coca-Colas of the world. So it's become a lot harder for corporate brands to be able to kind of break through all the noise that's being created on social media. And on the flip side, it's actually become easier, I find, for any individual out there that wants to start a product, build a brand for themselves or their company. It's become a lot easier to kind of navigate through these what I refer to as a noisy digital ocean. It's become a lot easier because we're able to move at a much faster pace than the big corporation. So I've worked on the inside of big corporations as a head of social media marketing. And I can tell you that if you work for $1 billion company and you go to your CMO and you suggest to start a podcast, you're not starting that podcast tomorrow or next week. You have to keep coming back, prove your business analysis, build a case around it, come with data. And that process in itself takes so long, where you can have someone like yourself or me or whomever that can create a TikTok channel, a podcast, a YouTube channel, start populating with content much quicker than a enterprise brand can. So from a competitive advantage standpoint, we all have access to the same tools, but we're not all moving at the same speed. And I think that in itself is going to be the ultimate demise of big corporations on social media. Not to say that big corporations are going to go away necessarily, but that's going to be the demise of their presence, digitally speaking. Now, the flip side to that is that where we're at today, COVID-19, first of all, is forcing a lot of people to sit at home and watch content online. So if your brand sucks, people aren't going to watch, right? Imagine that before, I kind of like to use this as an example, like our Instagram, our YouTube, our presence is like having your own reality show, and the social networks themselves are the network. So imagine like you go onto Comcast or Xfinity or DirecTV and you look at a menu and you see like 500 different options of channels to watch. Well, now with the rise of content creators and influencers, you have thousands of options of where you're going to watch to consume content. Again, it makes it harder for brands. So in this era where we're at now, if you are just showing up and you sound lame, look lame, and you're just overtly advertising or selling, people are going to tune you out. And you're starting to see big brands that are being affected by COVID-19. You've heard of some bankruptcies recently, like Neiman Marcus and J. Crew, and you're going to continue to see that. So I think it's a very long way for me to say to your audience here that if you have any inkling into an idea or a brand that you want to start, now's the time to do it. And you don't need to have a lot of startup capital. You don't need to have a big following. You just got to get started.
Well, earlier in my podcast, I talked to another, female entrepreneur. She said, as long as you inspire or, impact a good 5 people, 10 people, it changes. As long as you're impacting every person every single day, then you're doing your job, And I feel like social media is a great opportunity for everyone. Especially how you mentioned big corporate brands. Do you believe if they don't set relevant or creative content, do you believe that those large companies would lose in the long term?
Yeah, I think absolutely in the long term they're going to lose. I think right now in the season that we're in, the focus needs to be on building community one person at a time, showing empathy in your content, and really doing a much better job of listening. You see the poor job that the brands have really failed to do when it comes to social media marketing specifically is using social media as a big focus group to listen to what's being said and then build community by actually engaging one-on-one with your consumers or your audience that lives.
Yeah. And so like how you mentioned the big corporates, what's gonna happen if they don't do it? Like what should big businesses should do so they don't have what should they start doing? What kind of content should they start doing for big
The brands that are really doing a good job right now, especially over the last couple of months with the rise of COVID-19, have really been ones that are keeping their communities informed of what's happening. Like I'll give you an example. I travel a lot when things are normal. I stay at Marriott. I travel with American Airlines, and these brands have done a really good job of keeping their communities informed of what's happening. Whether it's properties being closed, properties being reopened, what measures they're taking to ensure safety. Again, that goes back to what I shared before, which is showing empathy. I think that the brands out there that are finding ways to keep their community entertained, educated, informed, inspired are doing a really good job. I just did a presentation today, and some of the different examples I shared besides Marriott and American Airlines were like Miller High Life, helping people get married at home, Progressive Insurance, using kind of the Zoom culture. We're using Zoom here to record. A lot of people are using Zoom culture, create campaigns around Zoom. I think what you need to do as a marketer, regardless of what you sell, or if you're a small business, solopreneur, enterprise brand, is you really need to think with who is my audience at the end of the day and what do they want to see? So if you're going to launch a clothing brand using Shopify, for example, because you want to be the next Supreme or Louis V, go do it. But have in mind on day one, who is it that you're trying to sell to? Where are these individuals engaging on social media? What type of content are they sharing already? And how can you really be a part of their life? How can you add value to their life? I have personally seen people that have started with a fashion blog, had nothing to do specifically with a particular product or item. They started with a fashion blog, just talking about sneakers, talking about high-end fashion. And then because they started building a following, that blog eventually turned into a sock company, or it turned into a t-shirt company because the brand itself had a following. So what I'm trying to say is that, the opportunities are really endless, but you need to start with just building community one person at a time. And it goes back to what I said before. Social media gives us all a competitive advantage, but if you're using social media just to sell, consumers are really going to just weed you out.
Yeah, because it's like going back to TV commercial. People are just trying to sell you, and I feel like people get bored, they get annoyed from that. And recently I watched one of your videos. You mentioned how AI, artificial intelligence, are going to take over. Um, do you believe building a relationship with one another is a strong way to produce content out there? What were some of the way people can build a strong community or engage with the followers or audience?
Well, I think the way that you can engage with your community, is no different than what I do with my community, right? Right before I came on here to record with you, I went on Instagram stories. I shouted you out. I let my community know what I was going to do. Brands need to take lessons from individuals. And I share this in the end of marketing. If you just sit back and pay attention to what celebrities and personal brands are doing on social media, you need to do the same thing. And when I talk about humanizing your brand and making yourself real and relatable, it's just taking whoever is watching along for a journey. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
So when you start your day at the office, when you start your day before you get to work, what you're doing in the middle of the day, what you're doing in the evening, you just have to keep your community, bring them along for the ride and keep them up to date and informed. It's not hard, but I feel that so many marketers that I meet think that this is a tough challenge. And honestly, Charlie, it's just being present and using the technology that we all have access to, right? Which typically lives on the phone. But you see what happens in like the corporate marketing world, and I know this firsthand from working, for so many years for big corporations, is a lot of marketers, corporate marketers specifically, which are different than internet marketers. Corporate marketers are often thinking about the next campaign. They're thinking about the sale that they have running. They're trying to find ways to connect that sale or that campaign together with social media, because they just see social media as another channel or vehicle to advertise. Internet marketing and corporate marketing are not one and the same. Internet marketing, oftentimes it's transaction based, right? You create a course, you create a product, you create a shirt, whatever it is, and you're just trying to move units quickly, right? Lower price point, you're just trying to move units, but oftentimes you're building a brand around the people that make up that company. So if it's a course, look at someone like Atai Lopez or Grant Cardone, for example. These internet marketers do a fantastic job of building community around the people that they're trying to serve. And a corporate brand should be no different. And I kind of take pride in saying that I know how to wear both hats. Being that I've come from the corporate marketing world, I know what happens on the inside of the four walls of a big brand. And I also have a personal brand myself, and I've spent now many years in the internet marketing world. So I know how to kind of shift in between those two worlds. And I can confidently say that being a marketer today is not just like one size fits all. Like, what type of marketer are you? And that's what really keeps me motivated in this space every day, man. Again, over the last 2 months, I've been studying a lot about the world of e-commerce, right? I never really would have considered myself before a direct-to-consumer marketer, okay, or an e-commerce marketer. But it's a new muscle that I'm developing and I'm getting to learn. And I think, marketers really, wherever you sit, need to take a step back and analyze who is it that you're trying to reach and what do you want to be known for 10 years from now.
And because I have a lot of young entrepreneurs, a lot of finance people, I have a lot of artists, young marketers as well. What are 3 tips you can give to the people that they want to build a strong personal brand? If they're just starting off, if they're on media or afraid or have that fear, what are 3 tips that you can give out there that can truly build a strong personal brand?
Starting a personal brand really starts with, one, what are your goals? The question I get asked all the time in forums like this and also at conferences is, how do you build a personal brand? And I often turn back on the person that asks me, and I'll ask them, why do you want to have a personal brand? Because quite frankly, to build a personal brand requires a lot of time and effort and, truthfully, money as well. Yeah. So if you want to have a personal brand just to be rich and famous, great. What do you want to be rich and famous for? Fame means you're known for something, and rich means that you created something that generated a profit for you. So again, what do you want to be known for? That's just step number 1. 2 is, what are you going to do in order for people to know that you exist, right? So are you creating a product, a service? Are you motivating people? What is it, right? And whatever that thing is, you have to just go after it. I know a lot of folks out there, they see other motivational speakers on Instagram and they want to create a motivational brand. Yeah. So go do it. But keep in mind that you have to stand for something or say something that's going to resonate with others out there, which, I think is 3. One of the most critical points is, who's your audience, right? There's so many people using social media. You look at a platform like Instagram, there's over 2 billion users. You're not going to appeal to everyone. You're not going to be able to reach everyone. So who is it that you're trying to reach? If you're trying to reach other young entrepreneurs like you're doing here, great. Like, what's your value add to them then? What are you bringing to the table? What makes you different than other young entrepreneurs? There are people I've met throughout the years that have done an amazing job just creating groups and bringing people together. They're not trying to be the center of attention. They're not trying to be necessarily the leader of the pack. They're just bringing people together. And guess what? When you bring people together, that's where your conferences are born. Yeah. That's where your meetups are born. Then there's other people that are trying to be teachers. And those teachers know who their audience is because, those teachers went out into the wild. They created something. They did something that's notable and worthy of teaching. And then they come back to their tribe and then they teach a tribe and they monetize. Right? Yeah. So I would say, you asked me for 3, but I'd say probably the 4th step is you have to be consistent in making noise. You have to make a lot of noise because the whole personal branding game is all about longevity, right? You're on what episode of your podcast?
14. I started 3 months ago now. So yeah. So
you started 3 months ago. You've got 14 in. That's great. Yeah. But I would say to you, Charlie, you have to probably do another 100 of these, right, before you really probably hit critical mass. Because what happens is the snowball effect. Little by little, people start to promote you. You have guests like me that come on. Once the podcast publishes, we share it out. So little by little, you start getting that traction, right? Well, when you're 14 episodes in, that's a lot different of a story than when you're 100 episodes in, and now you've interviewed 100 people and you've gained traction along those months and along those interviews. So longevity, playing that long game, being consistent, that's all going to be key. Making noise, right? What makes you and me and the next guy or girl different is how many people are we able to truly impact and reach? And again, it goes back to, then the marketing. Social media and the internet's a noisy digital ocean. And in order to really break through the noise, you have to be known for something. You have to have something of value that you offer others, and you have to be consistent.
Yeah. And I've read so much in the book. You mentioned how you started off on, by, blogging on YouTube, by LinkedIn. What got you started into marketing? Like, what was that, that idea? Like, oh, this is for me. I'm gonna start doing marketing. What was that? When did you have that idea, or why did you want to become specifically in marketing industry?
That's a good question. I never said to myself that I want to be a marketer. I didn't go to college. I dropped out of high school at 17 and got my GED. And then I started selling shoes right when I dropped out and got my GED. And I realized very quickly that making minimum wage and selling shoes wasn't really a glamorous life. I always enjoyed working and making money. So I started working in corporate at 19 for a bank, for Citigroup. And at 19, I realized okay, making good money in a career is awesome. It afforded me the ability to buy a house young and buy my own cars and whatnot. This is pre-social media. I'm talking about 2002, 2003, man. But what happened was in 2008, when the economy tanked and I lost my job in banking, I realized, okay, I'm a high school dropout that has no job. It's gonna be very hard to get hired when there are millions of other people that are unemployed. So I joined LinkedIn really early on. I joined Twitter early on. And this is before social media was really being used by businesses like you see today. And I started networking with people, started joining groups. Honestly, man, I did all the things that you and anyone else that's starting off should really be doing. And just start networking, man, put my name out there. And, I figure the more that people know who Carlos Gil is, there'll be more people that land on my LinkedIn, more people that follow on Twitter. And little by little, I started realizing the value of personal brand, because my personal brand started becoming my business card, and those network connections started earning value. And I started up an online job board. That was my first business. And I wasn't necessarily a great entrepreneur because I didn't know a single thing about running a business. I didn't know anything about marketing. I didn't know anything about PR, but I knew if I get my product in front of people and just even get them to get a reaction, go to my website, then that's a conversion. And so I started creating more awareness and more noise. And naturally, man, marketing just became a part of my DNA. It became just one of those things that you do to grow your business. So I never really labeled myself a marketer. It wasn't until I started speaking at conferences right around 2014 and 15 that I started thinking of myself as a marketer. And granted, I had, social media marketer on my business cards at the time, but never really considered myself a marketer. It was just marketing was what I was doing in order to survive and stay afloat.
Yeah, and then when you started off doing this, how did you build your network? And you came from scratch. You told me you didn't have a college degree. You dropped out of high school. How did you build up your network? And especially someone that listening to this or watching this, how can they build up their network? If you have no people. I feel like right now is the big opportunity because we have social media. You can literally DM anyone nowadays and just start up from there. But how did you build up your network from starting from scratch?
So really good question, man. The day that I lost my job, November 5th, 2008, was a day I'll never forget because first of all, you have those moments throughout your life that are just, they kind of make you and mold you to who you are. So for me, it was the day I lost my job in the banking industry. That day, I also joined LinkedIn. And when you first joined LinkedIn back then, it was no different than today. You have no connections. So the first place that you're going to go is you're going to start looking at people that I started connecting with former colleagues and coworkers. And then I just started joining groups. So I started joining different retail groups, different banking groups, different human resources groups, because I just figured, well, I'll just jump on this LinkedIn thing, fill out, build a profile, fill out all the fields, and then I'll just use it to find a job. And that is where I became inspired to start up a business. But it was just groups, man. And I'll be honest with you, I spammed the hell out of a lot of people. Like if I had a dollar for every time, yeah, if I had a dollar for every time someone called me a spammer back in the day, man, I'd be rich right now. But look, man, it's a fact. I had to just be real guerrilla and real aggressive and just, man, spam as many people as I could. I know that sounds horrible, but dude, when you're young and you're hungry and like low key, you're kind of borderline desperate, you'll do whatever it takes, man. So for me, it was joining as many groups as I could, get my name out there. Kind of like a growth hack that I would do in order to like get my name is I wouldn't necessarily like sell anything, but I would just create these like threads. Yeah. So I would like go into groups. I would just create a thread like, hey, how's it going, everyone? I'm Carlos Gill, founder of Jobs Direct USA. Looking to grow my network. Introduce yourself below. So in those threads, I already told you my name. I already told you who I am. I gave you the name of my company, and I'm telling you to introduce yourself. So I'm like low key, like throwing value back at you, like giving you a stage for you to introduce yourself. Yeah. So figure, you would join, I don't know, 50 groups on LinkedIn, and then you would join another 50 on Facebook. And now you go to all these different groups and you're creating all these different threads. Yo, people are going to comment on there. And that's exactly what they would do. They would comment. I would go back into the groups. I would like their comment. I would engage back. And again, like we're talking in an era where it's not like today where I'm like really busy. We're talking in an era where I had all the time in the world and I was younger and I had more energy to literally sit on my computer all day and do this.
Oh, wow. And when you
just roll the dice.
Yeah, no. And the thing is, what's crazy is that when you started doing this, when did you get to that point when you picture yourself like, wow, I'm dealing with real people. I'm meeting so many great entrepreneurs. I'm dealing with so many things. When was that moment like, oh, wow, I can do this for a living. I can actually finally start doing my business and, not depend on other people and actually, benefit myself?
To be honest with you, man, the first year that I was in business, I made no money. Oh, wow. And little by little, people were like seeing my name. They were asking me for advice and recommendations on how to use social media to recruit, how to use social media market. When people start asking you, how do you do X? Yeah, that's when you know that people are starting to perceive you as being influential or being a thought leader or being able to teach. And that is when I would say you can probably charge for your time. If someone comes to you and like wants to pick your brain, but you see, again, I was young, man. There wasn't social media and the internet like now, so I didn't necessarily know these things. So I wasted a lot of time giving people my time for free. Like I'd have people reach out and they want to have coffee or they would want to hop on a call. And, I would just immediately hop on those calls because to me, it was like, oh, wow, someone wants to talk to me. Yeah. Right. But now that I look back, I realize like, yeah, people want to talk because they want to do what I call mental vampire you. They want to like get in your brain. They want to know what you know and they don't want to pay for it. So once you start seeing that people are reaching out to you blindly and asking you for advice or consultations, then like, all right, like I'm really onto something. But it takes a while, man. So first year I was in business, I didn't make any money. The second year I was in business, I started hosting my own like recruiting events, job fairs. Those started to produce income. And then in year 3, man, I signed a sponsorship deal with Sprint and I hosted this national, what was called the Pink Slip Tour. It was a national job search tour. And that was like the first time I made like big money on my own. And lo and behold, man, the relationship with Sprint originated from just a connection on LinkedIn. And at the time, their head of Hispanic PR, dude, was just following what I was doing. There was no sales pitch. There was nothing. It was just I was doing good things. This guy started taking notice, and he just started paying attention to what I was doing. We just started staying in touch. And to this day, Charlie, like my game, if you will, business development is very much the same. I don't do cold calls. I don't do pitches. I don't reach out to people out of the blue. Literally, man, I let the game come to me. Oh, wow. If you follow me, if you opt into my content, yeah, I'm selling to you. Yeah. But I'm not actually coming out and being like, hey, here's this product, buy. But I'm selling to you. Yeah. Right? subtly, I'm selling to you that, yo, there's a reason why you followed me. Keep watching.
That's true.
And when the time is right, you're going to know, hey, let me reach out to this guy. Again, whether it's buying a book, a course, or whatever it is. And it goes back to what we were talking about before with brands. Brands are no different, man. Brands have the ability to do the same exact thing. But again, these major corporations face so much scrutiny and pressure, and the marketers specifically that work within them, that they feel like that they just got to sell all the time. And that's not the world that we're living in.
Yeah. So I guess the new way is now being authentic storytelling from
It's always been being authentic.
Yeah.
The way business has always been predicated is that you do business with people that you like and trust. That's never really changed. I think what happens now is that the way that we've seen the internet evolve, and I think it's really thanks to YouTube, in combination with even reality TV, we are all the stars of our own reality show. So when you go on Instagram stories, that's your reality show. When you create a vlog on YouTube, that's your reality show. And it's all this content that is what makes you likable to somebody, right? Not everyone's going to like me, but there are people out there that, like, I would say it's safe to say, like you, that do.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I throw it back on you. Like, what makes you want to follow me?
Yeah, no, I agree. No, it's like, because you bring so much value to the people, like things that I didn't even know about, like just storytelling, like bringing information. That's impressive. And now that I'm reading your book, it's like, wow, like I'm getting deeper information on social media.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have any special routines that you do? Because I know people that deal with so much clients, employees, your family, you have to balance your life, your kids, yourself, your social life. Do you have any special routines so you can keep yourself creative or productive?
Routines, man, honestly, it's just more mindset than it is routine. I try to maintain a positive mindset, even when things don't necessarily work out or go according to plan. I just stay positive. Everything happens for a reason. Everything happens when it's supposed to happen. I would say, that's really my North Star, is just my mental state. More so a routine. I'm like anyone else. When I wake up in the morning, have a cup of coffee, check my emails, check my social media. I'd be lying to you if I told you, man, I do yoga every morning, I work out every morning. I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs that are all about that life, and that's cool, man. But, for me, man, it's just about, enjoying the now and the here, and just staying positive, man. Staying focused on what my goals are. And that's something that people ask all the time, like, how do you stay focused? And, I've got goals I set for myself. I have very high expectations of my own performance.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, you got to be your biggest fan, but you have to be your biggest critic. And, as long as you're your biggest fan, your biggest critic, then you're always going to keep it 100 with yourself. And you got to push yourself to do whatever it is that you want to do, man. Right now, I'm trying to get, a few different e-commerce brands off the ground. No one's going to be able to do it for me. I got to do it for me. Granted, I've got employees, I've got, resources that work with me to make these things happen. But if I wake up tomorrow and I just want to play Call of Duty all day, things aren't going to get done. That's just fact of life.
Yeah. And now with this, this businesses, this accomplishment you're doing, where do you see yourself in 5 or 10 years? What motivates you? Where do you see yourself in 5, 10 years from after now?
Man, 5 to 10 years, man, I would say inspiring and motivating and educating a lot of young men and women like yourself.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see where the next 10 years go. I'm already getting the itch to write another book. So I would say, in terms of like the career path I've carved out for myself,
mm-hmm.
is just now it just becomes kind of layering on top of what I've done, building what I've done. I found writing a book was really easy, but it was really hard. And it was easy from the standpoint of, like, I like to write. So
mm-hmm.
It wasn't hard, tedious work, but it was a grind with doing it because it was a new experience. But now that I know the experience and I know what to expect for the next time, it's going to be easier. So that's why you see that there are authors that have written 4, 5, 6, 7 books, because once you know the formula, then you just kind of replicate the formula and you keep building, man. I'm not one of these guys that's going to sit here and say, like, look, I want to be a billionaire and, I want to be the next Zuckerberg, because that's just not me, man. Yeah. Like, I'm a hard worker. Huh?
People have different mentality.
Yeah, I'm a hard worker, man. I want to keep building. I want to provide for my family, and I want to teach people. Yeah. And if at the end of the day, man, years from now, when I no longer exist, people are like, oh, man, I read this guy's book, or I saw a YouTube video of this guy and it really changed my life, then, hey, mission accomplished.
Yeah, and for your next book, are you still planning to do marketing, or is there anything else particular?
You know, that's interesting. I'm glad that you asked that because I have a love-hate relationship with marketing.
Oh,
I don't necessarily want to be known as a marketer, man, my entire life, because like I've shared with you, like I didn't even think about myself as a marketer until like 5 years ago when I started speaking at marketing conferences,
yeah.
even though I was already doing it for a living. I think eventually I want to segue more into life coaching. So much I want to teach people, just again, being a high school dropout, getting married young, having kids young. Like those are the stories that I think are really more impactful than how do you grow an Instagram account. Um,
So I guess more motivating people in your courses.
yeah, man, I'd say more of just life lessons, if you will. But I'll tell you what, man, like, I have a big passion for pro wrestling. And I was actually just thinking today of doing like a keynote about the parallels between wrestling and marketing and kind of put like a fun spin on it. So typically books, at least my book, The End of Marketing, kind of derived from 2 years worth of keynotes, just kind of talking about the same thing over and over, and then realizing like the way I deliver it should go into a book. So The End of Marketing was really a couple years worth of keynotes. And I think, if I do a new keynote altogether that starts teaching people, like even recently, I've started to develop a new keynote on how to build communities in times of crisis, which is like an extension of The End of Marketing in itself. But I think if I were to create like an all new keynote, then, that might be book number 2. And then maybe book number 3 is more like life coaching.
And now that
But I was going to say, that's a good question, man, because you see the art of doing what you do as a podcast host is you got to get your guests to say and give you sauce that they don't really tell anywhere else. So you heard it first.
No, because I think recently in all time, this is my 30th or 31st interview because I have 2 brands. And what I realized is, what do people want to know about? That's why I try to like bring the best question and value to the people, in my opinion.
Got it.
Now that what do you think the biggest lesson for all businesses or influencers or personal brands? What's the biggest lesson they could take from this like COVID-19 scenario? What's the biggest lesson?
Biggest lesson that you have to take from this scenario is that life in itself has changed, and you need to adapt to the new realities. People are afraid. People are, in some cases, at a loss for money or tight on money. And at the same time, people are online. The flip side is that companies today are operating with probably less staff internally than they did before COVID. Yeah. You've had companies that have had to lay off. You look at Lyft recently, they had to lay off about 1/4 of their workforce. And you're going to continue to see that. So I'd say that the key phrase is do more with less. Find ways that you can do more with less, meaning it might be engage with more people, but post less content. Instead of posting photos and videos, increase your output of having conversations. I'll give an example with you. I haven't actually sat down and recorded content in months. Meaning I haven't sat in front of a camera and recorded content. However, if you look at my Instagram, I've been repurposing Instagram TV videos or Instagram lives onto Instagram TV. I've been taking tweets that have performed really well on Twitter and I've repurposed them over on Instagram. So that's what I mean about do more with less. Find a way to still have a presence and be active, but you don't necessarily need to keep producing content like you were before.
Smarter?
What's that?
Working smarter, I guess.
Working smarter, not harder.
Yeah, I'll give it. Now, before we head off, I normally on my podcast I ask 3 questions. So the first question is, if you had to have one superpower, what would it be?
Oh man, I would love to know what people are thinking. I would love to be able to read their thoughts. I'd love to be a mind reader.
Mind reader? Awesome. Now the second one, waffles or pancakes?
Pancakes all day.
Pancakes? Oh wow. The last one, if you had to eat one meal for the rest of the day, what would it be?
Like every day, same meal?
One meal, yeah.
Damn. I love breakfast sandwiches. I'd go with breakfast sandwiches.
Yeah.
Or nachos is a toss-up.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Carlos, for bringing so much value to the people out there. It means a lot. Hope you and your family are doing good, and wish you so much success for your business. And again, it's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks, my man. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, man. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.